The December wind cut through the thin fabric of Maya's jacket like 1,000 tiny knives. She pulled the worn material tighter around her small frame, but it did little to keep out the bitter cold that had settled over the city. At 15 years old, she had learned that survival meant staying invisible, blending into the shadows of doorways and alleyways where people hurried past without looking down. The downtown shopping district blazed with Christmas lights, each window display more elaborate than the last. Families streamed past her spot near the corner of Fifth and Market, their arms laden with shopping bags, their faces flushed with the warmth of holiday cheer and indoor heating. Maya watched them from beneath the overhang of an abandoned storefront, her fingers wrapped around a paper cup that had once held coffee. Someone had tossed it in the trash that morning, and she had fished it out, hoping it might encourage a few coins from passing strangers. She had been on the streets for 8 months now. 8 months since the night her mother's boyfriend had come home in one of his rages, and Maya had finally fought back. 8 months since she had grabbed what little she could carry and disappeared into the urban landscape. The foster system had failed her twice before, and she refused to go back. At least on the streets, she knew what dangers to expect. The jacket she wore had been her most precious find, discovered in a donation bin outside a church 3 weeks ago. It was too large, hanging past her knees, but it was warmer than the thin hoodie she had been surviving in. What made it truly special, though, was the patch sewn onto the left shoulder. It was faded and worn, the edges fraying, but she could still make out the eagle, anchor, and trident design. Her grandfather had worn one just like it, back when she was small enough to sit on his knee and listen to his stories. He had been a Navy SEAL, her grandfather, the only person who had ever made her feel truly safe. He would tell her about his team, about the meaning of honor and courage, about never leaving a fallen comrade behind. She had been 7 when he passed away, but his words had stayed with her through every dark moment that followed. The jacket with its patch felt like carrying a piece of him with her, a reminder that she came from someone strong, someone who never gave up. A group of teenagers passed by, their designer coats and expensive boots marking them as kids from the wealthy side of town. One of them, a girl with perfectly styled blonde hair, noticed Maya and nudged her friends. Their laughter rang out, sharp and cruel in the cold air. "Oh my God, look at her," the blonde girl said, not bothering to lower her voice. "Is she actually homeless? Gross," another one added, wrinkling her nose. "Why doesn't she just go to a shelter or something? Maybe she likes being dirty," a boy in the group snickered. "Hey, homeless girl, don't you have somewhere else to be?" Maya kept her eyes down, focusing on a crack in the sidewalk. She had learned that engaging only made it worse. The key was to become part of the background, to let their words wash over her without reaction. But, inside, each comment landed like a physical blow, adding to the collection of wounds she carried. The blonde girl stepped closer, her expensive perfume overwhelming in its sweetness. "What's with that ridiculous jacket? Did you steal it from a dumpster?" She reached out and flicked the seal patch with one manicured finger. "This is so cringe. Like you could ever be connected to anyone in the military." Her friends erupted in laughter, and Maya felt her cheeks burn despite the cold. Her fingers instinctively went to the patch, covering it protectively. This was different from their other insults. They could mock her appearance, her situation, her circumstances, but not this. Not the one thing that connected her to her grandfather's memory. "Leave me alone," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible over the street noise. "What was that?" The blonde girl leaned in, cupping her ear mockingly. "Did the homeless girl actually speak? I didn't think you people knew how." "Come on, Brittany, let's go," one of the other girls said, looking uncomfortable. "This is getting boring." But Brittany wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone, holding it up to take a picture. "This is going on my story. Everyone needs to see this pathetic. That's enough." The voice came from behind the group, deep and commanding. The teenagers spun around to find a man standing there, his posture radiating authority despite his casual civilian clothes. He was tall and broad-shouldered, probably in his mid-30s, with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. There was something about the way he carried himself that made even Brittany take a step back. "Excuse me." Brittany tried to sound indignant, but Her voice wavered slightly. The man's gaze moved past the teenagers to Maya, and she saw his expression change as he took in her situation. His eyes lingered on the patch on her jacket for a long moment, and something shifted in his features. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. "I said that's enough," he repeated, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I suggest you all move along." "We weren't doing anything wrong," the boy in the group protested, but he was already backing away. There was something about this man that commanded respect, or at least caution. "You were harassing a minor," the man said flatly. "I'm sure your parents would love to hear about it. Or maybe the school administration. That looks like a St. Catherine's Academy uniform under your coat." Brittany's face went pale. "You can't." "I can, and I will if I see any of you near her again." He didn't raise his voice, but the steel in his tone was unmistakable. "Now leave. All of you." The group scattered like leaves in the wind, their earlier bravado completely evaporated. Brittany shot Maya one last venomous look before hurrying after her friends, her phone clutched forgotten in her hand. Maya watched them go, then turned her attention to the man who had intervened. She had learned to be wary of adults who took too much interest in street kids. Nothing came without a price. "Thank you," she said carefully, preparing to grab her backpack and move to a different location. "But I'm fine. I don't need any help." The man held up his hands in a peaceful gesture, taking a step back to give her space. "I'm not here to cause you trouble," he said. "I just couldn't stand by and watch that." Up close, Maya could see the small details she had missed before. The way he scanned the street with methodical precision, the alert awareness in his posture, the faint scars on his hands. And there, just visible at the collar of his jacket, was the edge of a tattoo. She couldn't make out the full design, but she recognized the style immediately. "Military ink." "You were watching the patch?" Maya said, not quite making it a question. The man smiled slightly, and it transformed his stern features into something warmer. "I was. It's not often you see a SEAL trident outside of military circles." He gestured to her jacket. "Mind if I ask where you got it?" Maya's hand went protectively to the patch again. "It was my grandfather's. He was a SEAL. Served in Vietnam." The man's expression softened with understanding. "He died when I was 7. Maya wasn't sure why she was sharing this with a stranger, but something about him felt different from the usual adults who tried to talk to her. "He was the best person I ever knew." The man nodded slowly, and Maya saw genuine respect in his eyes. "The teams lose a lot of good people. Your grandfather must have been something special to have earned that patch." He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell. I served with SEAL Team 3 for 12 years before I moved to a training position here in the city." Maya studied him with new eyes. That explained the bearing, the way he moved with contained power, the instant authority he had commanded over those teenagers. He was one of them, one of the warriors her grandfather had told her about. "Maya," she offered after a moment. "Just Maya." "It's good to meet you, Maya." Ryan glanced around the busy street, then back at her thin frame and inadequate clothing. "How long have you been out here?" "I'm fine," Maya said automatically, the defensive walls going up. "I know how to take care of myself." "I'm sure you do." Ryan's tone held no condescension, just honest acknowledgement. "But it's going to be 17 degrees tonight. That jacket won't be enough, SEAL patch or not." Maya said nothing, because they both knew he was right. She had been dreading nightfall, when the temperature would plummet and the doorway she had been sleeping in would become even less protected from the elements. Last night, she had barely slept at all, her body shivering so violently that her teeth had chattered until her jaw ached. "Look," Ryan said, pulling out his wallet. "I'm not going to pretend I understand your situation or why you're out here instead of somewhere safe. But I know your grandfather would want you taken care of." He held out several bills. "At least take this. Get yourself a hot meal, and maybe a night in a hostel." Pride warred with necessity in Maya's chest. She had gotten by without handouts so far, taking only what she needed from dumpsters and donation bins, doing odd jobs when she could find them. But the money Ryan was offering represented something she hadn't had in months: choice. The choice to be warm, to be fed, to spend one night without fear. Slowly, she reached out and took the money. "Thank you," she whispered. Ryan smiled. "Your grandfather was a SEAL. That makes you family, in a way. We look out for our own. He pulled out a business card and offered it as well. This has my contact information. If you ever need help, real help, not just money, you call me. Anytime, day or night. Maya took the card, though she doubted she would ever use it. In her experience, people said things like that, but rarely meant them when it came down to it. Still, the gesture was kind, and kindness had been in short supply lately. I mean it, Ryan said, as if reading her thoughts. I know you probably think I'm just another adult making empty promises. But SEAL teams work on a principle: never leave a man behind. Your grandfather lived by that code. So do I. Before Maya could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and grimaced. I have to go, but Maya, stay safe out here. And think about making that call. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd of holiday shoppers. Maya watched him go, then looked down at the money in her hand and the card with its embossed military insignia. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Mitchell. She turned it over and found a handwritten note on the back. Seriously, call anytime. You're not alone. The words blurred as unexpected tears filled her eyes. Maya wiped them away quickly, looking around to make sure no one had noticed. Crying was dangerous on the streets. It showed weakness, vulnerability. But, for just a moment, she let herself feel the warmth of what Ryan had offered. Not just the money or the promise of help, but the recognition. He had seen her grandfather's patch and understood what it meant. He had seen her, not just as a homeless girl to be pitied or mocked, but as someone worthy of respect. As the afternoon faded into evening and the Christmas lights began to glow brighter in the gathering darkness, Maya made her way to a small diner she had passed many times but never entered. The money Ryan had given her was more than enough for a real meal, and still leave some left over. She pushed open the door, feeling the blessed warmth wash over her, and found a booth in the back where she could sit with her back to the wall and watch the exits. The waitress who approached was an older woman with tired eyes and a kind smile. What can I get you, honey? Maya ordered the cheapest hot meal on the menu, even though Ryan's money could have covered much more. She had learned to make resources stretch, to never spend today what she might desperately need tomorrow. When the food arrived, steaming and plentiful, she ate slowly, making it last, savoring every bite. Through the diner window, she watched the city prepare for Christmas. Families walked past, their laughter and joy seeming to belong to a different world entirely. Once, she had been part of that world. Once, she had had a home and a family, had believed in the magic of the holidays. That felt like a lifetime ago now. But as she touched the seal patch on her jacket and thought about the man who had stopped to help her, who had seen past the dirty clothes and desperate circumstances to the person underneath, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. The sense that perhaps not everyone in the world had given up on her, even if she had almost given up on herself. She pulled out Ryan's card and studied it again in the diner's warm light. The address listed was for a military facility on the other side of the city. She wondered what he was doing there, whether he was training other SEALs, preparing them for the kind of missions her grandfather had once undertaken. She wondered if he really meant what he had said, or if tomorrow he would forget all about the homeless girl with the faded military patch. As Maya finished her meal and prepared to face the cold night ahead, she tucked the card carefully into her jacket pocket, right next to her heart. She wouldn't call him. She couldn't afford to trust that easily, to believe that anyone could or would actually help her without wanting something in return. But she would keep the card, just in case. Because for the first time in 8 months, someone had looked at her and seen worth. Someone had acknowledged her grandfather's legacy and treated her like she mattered. And on the streets, where every day was a battle just to survive, even that small recognition was worth holding on to. 3 days passed before Maya saw Ryan Mitchell again. 3 days of sleeping in doorways, of scrounging for food, of avoiding the police and the more dangerous street predators who saw homeless teenagers as easy targets. The money Ryan had given her was almost gone, spent carefully on food, and one precious night in a youth hostel where she had been able to shower and sleep without fear. It was late afternoon on Christmas Eve when their paths crossed again. Maya had been trying to stay warm in the public library, one of the few places she could sit for hours without being asked to leave, as long as she pretended to read. But the library was closing early for the holiday, and she found herself back on the cold streets as darkness began to fall. The city had transformed in the days leading up to Christmas. Every storefront glittered with lights. Every corner seemed to feature carolers or bell ringers collecting for charity. The contrast between the celebration all around her and her own desperate situation felt almost cruel. Families hurried past with armfuls of wrapped presents, their faces bright with anticipation, while Maya wondered where she would sleep when the temperature dropped below freezing tonight. She had made her way to a different part of downtown, farther from her usual spots, hoping to find somewhere new to spend the night. That was when she heard the shouting. A crowd had gathered in front of a large department store, their attention focused on something Maya couldn't quite see. She normally avoided crowds, but curiosity drew her closer. As she pushed through the outer ring of onlookers, she saw what had captured everyone's attention. A man was standing on the edge of the building's fourth-floor ledge, his body swaying dangerously as he looked down at the street below. Even from the ground, Maya could see he was crying, his face contorted with anguish. Police cars surrounded the building, their lights flashing, and officers were trying to clear the area while others presumably worked to reach the man from inside. "He's going to jump," someone near Maya whispered, their voice filled with horrified fascination. "Where's the fire department?" Another person demanded. "They need to get one of those air cushion things." Maya felt her stomach twist. She had seen desperate people before, had met plenty of them on the streets, but there was something about watching someone at the absolute edge of giving up that hit too close to home. She had been there herself, on nights when the cold and hunger and loneliness seemed too much to bear, when the future stretched out as nothing but an endless repetition of suffering. Then she saw Ryan. He was standing with a group of police officers, his posture tense, clearly trying to convince them of something. Even from a distance, Maya could see the frustration on his face as one of the officers shook his head. Without thinking, Maya pushed forward through the crowd until she was close enough to hear their conversation. "Sir, I appreciate your military experience, but this is a police matter," the officer was saying, his tone firm but respectful. "We have trained negotiators on the way." "They'll be too late," Ryan insisted. "That man is seconds away from jumping. I can talk him down. We can't just let civilians." "I'm not a civilian. I'm a SEAL with hostage negotiation training. I've talked people back from worse situations than this." Ryan's voice was urgent, but controlled. "Just give me 5 minutes. If I can't make progress, your negotiators can take over." The officer looked torn, glancing up at the figure on the ledge, then back at Ryan. "I can't authorize. Then find someone who can. Now, because that man doesn't have time for bureaucracy." Maya found herself stepping forward without planning to. He should do it. Several people turned to look at her, including Ryan. His eyes widened in recognition, but he didn't interrupt as she continued. "He helped me," Maya said, looking at the police officer. "3 days ago, when some people were harassing me. He didn't have to, but he did, and he knew exactly what to say." She gestured up at the building. "Maybe he can help that man too." The officer studied her for a moment, taking in her obvious street kid appearance, then looked back at Ryan with new consideration. Before he could respond, a voice crackled over his radio. "Subject is preparing to jump. Repeat, subject is preparing to jump." That decided it. The officer made a quick hand gesture. "Go. But you've got 5 minutes, and if things go south, you back off immediately." Ryan was already moving, striding toward the building's entrance with Maya unexpectedly following. An officer tried to stop her, but Ryan turned back. "She comes with me," he said. "Sir, that's not, she's with me," Ryan repeated, his tone brooking no argument. Sometimes the best negotiators are the ones who understand desperation firsthand. Maya didn't fully understand why Ryan wanted her there, but she followed him into the building and up the emergency stairs. Her legs burned by the time they reached the 4th floor, and used to so much exertion after days of minimal food. Ryan, in contrast, barely seemed winded. They emerged onto the floor to find it evacuated except for a few police officers maintaining a perimeter. Through the large windows that made up one wall of what appeared to be an office space, Maya could see the man on the ledge more clearly now. He was probably in his 40s, wearing a business suit that looked expensive but disheveled. His face was pale, streaked with tears, and his hands were shaking. Ryan approached the window slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. "Sir, my name is Ryan Mitchell. I'm going to open this window and come out there with you, if that's okay." "Stay back," the man shouted, his voice cracking. "I don't want to talk. I just want this to be over." "I understand," Ryan said calmly. "I felt that way myself. When I was deployed in Afghanistan, pinned down by enemy fire with half my team wounded, I remember thinking it would be easier to just give up, to let it end." The man's head turned slightly toward Ryan's voice, though he didn't take his eyes off the street below. "What stopped you?" he asked after a moment. "I thought about the people who needed me, my team, my family, and I thought about all the moments I would miss if I gave up." Ryan slowly opened the window, the cold night air rushing in. "Can I come out there? Just to talk? You don't have to come back in. I just want to understand what's brought you to this point." The man was silent for a long moment, then gave a barely perceptible nod. Ryan climbed through the window with the grace of someone who had performed much more dangerous maneuvers, settling onto the ledge a few feet away from the man, his back against the building wall. Maya watched from just inside the window, her heart pounding. The ledge was perhaps 18 inches wide, with nothing between them, and a 4-story drop to the concrete below. She could see Ryan's hands gripping the window frame behind him, the only thing keeping him stable. "What's your name?" Ryan asked conversationally, as if they were sitting in a coffee shop instead of on a ledge 4 stories up. "David," the man said after a hesitation. "David Chun. It's good to meet you, David, though I wish it were under better circumstances." Ryan's voice remained steady and calm. "What happened today?" David laughed bitterly. "What didn't happen? I lost my job this morning. After 15 years with the company, they just let me go. Budget cuts, they said. Nothing personal." His voice rose with anger and despair. "Nothing personal? I gave them everything. I worked 60-hour weeks. I missed my kids' school plays and baseball games. I sacrificed my marriage. And for what? To be thrown away the week before Christmas? That's not fair," Ryan agreed. "You deserved better than that. My ex-wife won't let me see my kids for Christmas. She says I haven't paid enough child support. But how am I supposed to pay when I don't have a job?" David's shoulders shook with sobs. "I've lost everything. My career, my family, my home. I'm about to lose my apartment. There's nothing left." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. She understood that feeling, the sense that everything had been stripped away, leaving nothing but emptiness and pain. But, listening to David, she realized something else. His losses were real and devastating, but they weren't permanent. He could find another job, rebuild his relationship with his children, start again. The fact that he couldn't see that meant he was trapped in his pain, unable to imagine a future beyond this moment of despair. "You haven't lost everything," Ryan said gently. "You're still here. You still have the chance to rebuild, to fight back, to show your kids what real strength looks like." "They don't need me," David said flatly. "They're better off without a failure for a father." "That's not true." The new voice made both men turn. Maya had climbed through the window without really thinking about it, driven by an impulse she didn't fully understand. The cold wind hit her immediately, threatening to knock her off balance, but she pressed her back against the building and focused on David's face. "Maya, get back inside," Ryan said urgently, though he didn't move to grab her, knowing that sudden movement on the narrow ledge could be fatal. "I'm fine," Maya said, though her legs were shaking. She looked at David. "You think your kids don't need you, but you're wrong. I lost my grandfather when I was 7. He was a Navy SEAL, the strongest, bravest person I knew. And when he died, it felt like the whole world got darker." David was staring at her now, really seeing her for the first time, taking in her worn clothes, her thin frame, the homeless kid look that she couldn't quite hide. "Every day since then, I've wished he was still here," Maya continued, her voice strengthening. "Not because he could solve my problems or make my life perfect, but because he made me feel like I mattered, like I was worth something." She touched the patch on her jacket. This was his. It's all I have left of him, and I would give anything, anything, to have him back, even if he had lost his job or his house or everything else, because none of that stuff matters as much as just having him there. Tears were streaming down David's face now, but he was listening. Your kids need you, Maya said firmly. Not the successful version of you. Just you. The real you. Because nobody else can be their father. Nobody else can love them the way you do. And if you jump, you're not just ending your pain. You're passing it on to them. Forever. The words hung in the cold night air. Maya could hear sirens below, voices shouting, but all of it seemed distant, unimportant. What mattered was the man in front of her, teetering between life and death. I don't know how to come back from this, David whispered. I don't know how to rebuild. One step at a time, Ryan said. The same way any difficult mission gets accomplished. You focus on the next right thing, then the one after that. Tomorrow, you wake up. You make a phone call. You start looking for work. You reach out to your kids, even if your ex makes it hard. You keep going. I'm scared, David admitted, his voice small. Being scared means you're still fighting, Ryan said. It's when you stop being scared that you should worry. Fear means you still care about the outcome. He extended his hand slowly, carefully. Come back inside, David. Let us help you figure out the next step. For a long moment, David didn't move. Maya held her breath, aware of the precarious position they were all in. Then, slowly, David reached out and took Ryan's hand. The next few minutes were tense as Ryan carefully helped David back through the window, with Maya following. Once they were all safely inside, David collapsed to the floor, sobbing, while police officers and paramedics rushed forward. Maya stepped back, suddenly, exhausted and shaking, whether from cold or adrenaline she couldn't tell. Ryan appeared at her side, his hand on her shoulder steadying her. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid, he said, though his tone held respect rather than anger. You could have been killed. So could you, Maya pointed out. Fair point. Ryan studied her face. What you said to him about your grandfather, that was real. It wasn't a question, but Maya nodded anyway. Every word. They watched as the paramedics led David away, still crying, but alive. Several police officers came over to take statements, and Maya found herself recounting the events of the past hour in a daze. It all felt surreal, like something that had happened to someone else. When the police finally finished with them, Ryan turned to Maya. It's Christmas Eve. Where were you planning to spend tonight? Maya shrugged, not wanting to admit that she had no plan beyond finding a doorway that might offer some protection from the wind. I'll figure something out. No, Ryan said firmly. You won't. You're coming with me. I don't need, Maya. Ryan's voice was gentle but insistent. You just climbed out on a 4th-story ledge to save a stranger's life. You're cold, you're exhausted, and it's going to be below freezing tonight. Let me help you. Please. Maybe it was the adrenaline crash, or maybe it was the simple fact that she was tired of being alone, but Maya found herself nodding. Okay, she said quietly. Just for tonight. Ryan's expression softened. Just for tonight. He agreed, though something in his tone suggested he was thinking much further ahead than that. As they walked out of the building together into the Christmas Eve night, Maya felt the weight of the seal patch against her shoulder. Her grandfather had always told her that the most important part of being a SEAL wasn't the physical strength or the tactical skills. It was knowing when to ask for help, when to trust your team, and understanding that real courage sometimes meant accepting that you couldn't do everything alone. Tonight, she thought, she was finally beginning to understand what he meant. Ryan's apartment was nothing like Maya had expected. She had imagined something sterile and military, all straight lines and bare walls. Instead, she found herself in a warm, lived-in space filled with photographs, books, and comfortable furniture that looked like it had been chosen for function rather than style. The walls displayed framed pictures of men in military gear, their faces sun-weathered and serious, along with medals and commendations mounted in simple frames. The bathroom is through there, Ryan said, pointing down a short hallway. There are clean towels in the cabinet. Take as long as you need for a hot shower. Maya hesitated at the threshold, suddenly, acutely aware of how out of place she was in this clean, safe space. I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. You're accepting help. Ryan moved to the kitchen area, which was separated from the living room by a breakfast bar. When you're done, I'll make us something to eat. I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage spaghetti without burning down the kitchen. The promise of a hot shower was too tempting to resist. Maya made her way to the bathroom, catching a glimpse of herself in the mirror above the sink. She barely recognized the girl staring back at her. Her face was gaunt, her skin pale beneath the dirt, her hair matted and dull. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, making her look older than 15. No wonder those teenagers had mocked her. She looked exactly like what she was, a homeless kid barely surviving on the streets. The shower was pure luxury. Maya stood under the hot water for what felt like hours, watching the grime and cold of the past months swirl down the drain. She used Ryan's shampoo and soap sparingly, not wanting to take advantage of his kindness. But the simple act of getting clean felt like washing away some of the desperation she had been carrying. When she finally emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than anything she had touched in months, she found that Ryan had left a pile of clothes outside the bathroom door. A navy sweatshirt, sweatpants, and thick socks. They were all far too large for her small frame. But they were clean and warm and smelled like laundry detergent instead of the street. She dressed quickly and emerged to find Ryan stirring a pot of sauce on the stove. He looked up and smiled. "Much better. You look human again." "Thanks," Maya said, though the comment stung a little. Had she really looked that bad? Ryan must have seen something in her expression because he quickly added, "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you look warmer. More comfortable." He gestured to the small dining table. "Sit. Food will be ready in a minute." Maya sat, watching him move efficiently around the kitchen. Despite his claim to not being much of a cook, he clearly knew his way around the space. The apartment had a bachelor's tidiness to it, everything in its place, but without the obsessive precision that would have felt unwelcoming. "How long have you lived here?" she asked, more to fill the silence than because she really wanted to know. "About 2 years. Since I took the training position." Ryan drained the pasta and began dividing it between 2 plates. "Before that, I was deployed more often than I was home. This is the first place that's really felt like mine." He brought the plates to the table along with 2 glasses of water and a basket of bread. It was simple food, nothing fancy, but to Maya, it looked like a feast. She waited until Ryan sat down and picked up his fork before she began eating, trying to pace herself even though her stomach was screaming for her to devour everything as fast as possible. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before Ryan spoke again. "What you did tonight at the building, that took real courage." Maya shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "I just said what I thought might help." You told him the truth. Sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do. Ryan set down his fork and looked at her seriously. "Can I ask you something? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to." Maya tensed but nodded. "Why are you on the streets? You mentioned your grandfather passed away when you were 7. What happened after that?" For a moment, Maya considered lying or deflecting. She had gotten good at avoiding questions about her past, at keeping the painful details locked away where they couldn't hurt her. But there was something about Ryan's straightforward manner, the genuine concern in his eyes, that made her want to tell the truth. "My mom had me when she was young," Maya began slowly. "Too young, really. She tried her best, but she struggled with addiction. My grandfather helped raise me for the first few years, but after he died, everything fell apart. Mom's drug use got worse. We moved around a lot, lived with different boyfriends. Some were okay. Most weren't." She paused, taking a sip of water to steady herself. Ryan waited patiently, not pushing, just listening. "When I was 12, child services took me away, put me in foster care. The first family seemed nice at first, but they only wanted the monthly check. They had 6 other foster kids, and we were basically free labor. I ran away after 4 months. They put you in another home?" Ryan asked gently. Maya nodded. "The second family was worse. The dad was always angry, and his wife just looked the other way. I stuck it out for almost a year, but then he started getting physical. Not just with me, with all the kids. I reported it, and they moved us, but by then, I was so tired of being passed around, of being nobody's priority." "So you went back to your mother?" "For a while. She had a new boyfriend by then. Marcus." Maya's voice hardened at the name. "He was the worst of all of them. Mean, drunk, violent. He hit my mom, and when I tried to stop him, he came after me too. One night, about 8 months ago, I fought back. Gave him a black eye and a bloody nose." "Good for you," Ryan said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Mom chose him over me. Told me I was the problem, that I was ruining her chance at happiness. Maya's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. So I left, packed what I could carry, and walked out. Been on the streets ever since. Ryan was quiet for a moment, his jaw tight. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Have you been in touch with your mother since then? No. I don't even know if she's looking for me. Probably not. Maya picked at her pasta, no longer hungry despite having been starving minutes before. I thought about going back to child services, but I'm 15 now. In a few years I'll age out of the system anyway, and I couldn't face being bounced around to more foster homes, being treated like a problem to be managed. So you chose the streets instead. I chose to survive on my own terms. Maya met his eyes defiantly. At least out there, I know what to expect. Nobody pretends to care and then disappoints you. Nobody makes promises they don't keep. Ryan leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know what I see when I look at you, Maya? I see a survivor. Someone who's been through hell but kept going. That takes the kind of strength most people never develop. I don't feel strong, Maya admitted quietly. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding on. That's what real strength looks like, Ryan said. It's not about never being afraid or never struggling. It's about getting up every morning and choosing to keep fighting even when it would be easier to give up. Like that man tonight, David. He was at his breaking point. You helped pull him back because you understood what he was going through. I just told him about my grandfather. You told him why living matters, even when everything else is falling apart. That's powerful, Maya. More powerful than you realize. They finished eating in thoughtful silence, and then Ryan cleared the plates while Maya sat at the table, suddenly exhausted. The warmth of the apartment, the full stomach, the emotional intensity of the day, all of it was catching up with her at once. You're welcome to sleep on the couch, Ryan said, returning from the kitchen. I'll get you some blankets and a pillow. It's not much, but it's warm and safe. Maya wanted to refuse, to maintain the independence she had fought so hard to preserve. But the truth was, she was tired. Tired of sleeping in doorways, of always being cold, of never feeling safe enough to really rest. For one night, she could accept this kindness. Thank you, she said simply. Ryan brought her an armful of blankets and a pillow, then showed her how to lock the door from the inside. I'm going to be in my room if you need anything. The door stays open, and you can leave anytime you want. This isn't a prison, Maya. It's just a safe place to rest. After he disappeared down the hallway, Maya made up a bed on the couch, which was more comfortable than any place she had slept in months. She lay down, pulling the blankets up to her chin, and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic and the occasional creak of the building settling. On the wall across from her, she could see one of the photographs Ryan had displayed. It showed a group of men in military gear, their arms around each other's shoulders, grinning despite the obvious exhaustion on their faces. She recognized Ryan in the center of the group, younger, but with the same steady presence. These were his brothers, she realized. His SEAL team. The people he had trusted with his life. Her grandfather had talked about that bond, about how going through hell together created a connection deeper than family. He had said that once you earned your trident, you were never alone again. You were part of something bigger than yourself, part of a brotherhood that would never abandon you. Maya touched the patch on her jacket, which she had kept close even after changing into Ryan's clothes. She wondered what her grandfather would think if he could see her now. Would he be disappointed that she had ended up on the streets? Would he be proud that she had survived? Would he understand why she had run instead of staying to fight through the foster system? Sleep came slowly, but when it finally arrived, it was deep and dreamless. For the first time in months, Maya slept without waking up every few hours, without the constant vigilance that came from sleeping in public places. She slept knowing that someone was watching over her, that for this one night at least, she was safe. She woke to the smell of coffee and found pale sunlight streaming through the windows. Christmas morning. For a moment, disoriented and warm, she forgot where she was. Then, memory returned, and she sat up quickly, panic fluttering in her chest. She had stayed the whole night. What if Ryan had changed his mind about helping her? What if he called child services while she slept? Morning. Ryan's voice came from the kitchen area. He was already dressed, holding a mug of coffee. How'd you sleep? Good, Maya admitted cautiously. Really good. I'm glad. He gestured to the kitchen. I'm not much of a breakfast cook, but I have cereal, toast, eggs if you want to risk my cooking. Toast is fine, Maya said, standing up and folding the blankets carefully. She felt oddly embarrassed, like she was imposing on his hospitality even though he had been the one to invite her. As they ate breakfast together, Maya kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Ryan to tell her she had to leave or that he had called the authorities. But he just made casual conversation, asking her about her grandfather's service, sharing stories from his own time in the teams. I have a question for you, Ryan said finally, setting down his coffee mug. And I want you to think carefully before you answer. Here it comes, Maya thought, bracing herself. What do you want, Maya? Not what you think you should want. Not what's practical or realistic. If you could have anything, any kind of life, what would it look like? The question caught her off guard. Nobody had ever asked her that before. Everyone always told her what she needed, what she should do, what was best for her. But nobody had ever asked what she actually wanted. I don't know, she said slowly, thinking. I guess I want what I had when my grandfather was alive. A place where I feel safe. Someone who actually cares what happens to me. The chance to be something more than just a statistic, another foster kid who fell through the cracks. Ryan nodded as if she had confirmed something he suspected. What if I told you there might be a way to make that happen? Not tomorrow, not magically, but over time. Would you be willing to try? Maya's heart started beating faster. What do you mean? I mean I have some connections, some resources. I can't promise it will be easy, and I can't promise it will work out perfectly. But if you're willing to trust me, I think we can find you a better path than the streets. Ryan leaned forward, his expression serious. You remind me of your grandfather's legacy, Maya. You've got that same core of strength, that refusal to quit even when things are impossible. I think you deserve the chance to build a real future. Why would you do that for me? Maya asked, her voice small. You don't even know me. Because your grandfather earned his trident, and that makes you family. Because I watched you risk your life to save a stranger last night. Because everyone deserves someone in their corner, and, right now, I'm volunteering for that position. Ryan smiled slightly. And, because if I don't help you, I'll have to imagine you back out on those streets, and I don't think I can live with that. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes before she could stop them. I'm scared, she whispered. Every time I've trusted an adult, they've let me down. I know, and I can't promise I'll never disappoint you or make mistakes. I'm human, and I'm going to screw up sometimes. Ryan's voice was steady and honest. But I can promise you this. I won't abandon you. I won't give up on you. And I'll do everything in my power to help you build the life your grandfather would have wanted for you. Maya wiped her eyes with the sleeve of the borrowed sweatshirt. What happens now? Now, we take it one step at a time, Ryan said. First, we need to get you documented, get your situation legal. I have a friend who's a lawyer, specializes in helping kids in difficult situations. We'll talk to her after the holiday. Then, we'll figure out living arrangements, school, all the practical stuff. You make it sound so simple. It won't be simple, but it will be worth it. Ryan extended his hand across the table. So what do you say, Maya? Are you willing to give this a shot? To give me a chance to prove that not all adults are going to let you down. Maya stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment, feeling the weight of the decision before her. She could say no, could walk out the door, and go back to the streets where at least she knew the rules. It would be safer emotionally, even if it was more dangerous physically. Or she could take the risk, could reach out, and accept this chance at something different. She thought about David Chun on that ledge, about how close he had come to giving up. She thought about her own words to him, about the importance of having someone in your corner. And she thought about her grandfather, about the code he had lived by, never leave a man behind. Slowly, Maya reached out and took Ryan's hand. Okay, she said, her voice shaky but determined. I'll try. Ryan's grip was firm and warm, and his smile was genuine. That's all I ask. Just a chance to prove that there are still good people in the world who keep their promises. As Maya sat in that warm apartment on Christmas morning, her hand in Ryan's, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, fragile, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, her life could be more than survival. That maybe she could have what her grandfather had always wanted for her. A future worth fighting for. The days following Christmas blurred together in a way Maya had never experienced. For the first time in 8 months, she wasn't constantly calculating her next move, worrying about where she would sleep or what she would eat. Ryan had set up a temporary arrangement where Maya stayed on his couch while he worked through the legal complexities of her situation. True to his word, Ryan had contacted his lawyer friend, Sarah Chun, the day after Christmas. Maya had been nervous about meeting her, expecting another adult who would look at her with pity or judgment. Instead, Sarah had greeted her with a firm handshake and a straightforward manner that reminded Maya of Ryan himself. "Here's the situation," Sarah had said, sitting at Ryan's dining table with a notepad and pen. "You're 15, which means you're still a minor. Your mother technically still has custody, even though you've been living on the streets. We need to figure out the legal path forward." "I'm not going back to her," Maya had said immediately, her body tensing. "Nobody's going to force you to do that," Sarah assured her. "But we need to understand all our options. Have you had any contact with your mother since you left?" Maya shook her head. "Not once. She hasn't even filed a missing person report as far as I know." Sarah had made a note. "That actually works in our favor. It demonstrates abandonment. Combined with the history of abuse and neglect, we have grounds to petition for emancipation once you turn 16, which is in 4 months, correct?" April 23rd, Maya confirmed. "In the meantime, we need to establish temporary guardianship." Sarah looked at Ryan. "You sure you want to take this on? The scrutiny, the home visits, all of it." "I'm sure," Ryan had said without hesitation. Over the following weeks, Maya learned just how much work went into turning that simple statement into reality. There were background checks, home inspections, interviews with social workers. Ryan had to prove he was a suitable guardian, that his apartment was appropriate for a teenage girl, that he had the resources and stability to take responsibility for Maya's welfare. Through it all, Maya waited in a strange state of suspended animation, afraid to believe it might actually work out, terrified that at any moment it would all fall apart, and she would be back on the streets. She kept her backpack packed and ready by the couch, just in case she needed to run. Ryan noticed, of course. He seemed to notice everything. "You know you don't have to keep that packed like you're ready to bolt," he said one evening as they ate dinner together, a routine they had fallen into. "This is real, Maya. I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you unless you choose to leave." "What if social services says no?" Maya asked, voicing the fear that kept her up at night. "What if they decide you're not suitable or that I need to go back into the foster system? Then we fight it. We appeal. We find another way." Ryan set down his fork and looked at her seriously. "I told you I wouldn't abandon you, and I meant it. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." The breakthrough came in mid-January, when Sarah called with news. "The temporary guardianship has been approved," she said, and Maya could hear the smile in her voice. "Ryan is now your legal guardian until we can petition for emancipation in April." Maya had cried then, really cried, for the first time since her grandfather's funeral. All the fear and stress and hope she had been holding inside came pouring out in great, heaving sobs while Ryan sat beside her on the couch, his hand on her shoulder, not saying anything, just being present. With the legal situation stabilized, Ryan set about helping Maya rebuild her life in practical ways. The first priority was school. Maya had been out of the education system for months, and, before that, her attendance had been spotty due to the chaos of her home life. "You're smart," Ryan told her as they sat down to discuss the plan. "Anyone can see that. But you're behind, and that's not your fault. We need to get you caught up." They enrolled Maya in an alternative education program designed for students with complicated backgrounds. It was smaller than a traditional school, with teachers who understood that academic success required addressing the whole person, not just drilling facts and figures. Maya was nervous on her first day, convinced that everyone would see her as the homeless girl, the charity case, the failure. Instead, she found herself in classes with other students who had their own stories, their own struggles. There was Marcus, who had aged out of foster care at 18 and was working full-time while trying to finish his diploma. There was Jade, who had been in juvenile detention and was fighting to prove she was more than her worst mistake. There was Darnell, who had been homeless like Maya and was now living with his grandmother, trying to make up for 2 years of missed education. For the first time, Maya didn't feel alone in her struggles. She wasn't the only one who had fallen through the cracks, and, more importantly, she wasn't the only one trying to climb back out. Her favorite teacher was Mrs. Rodriguez, who taught English and had a way of making literature feel relevant to their lives. One day, she assigned them to write about someone who had influenced them, someone who had shaped who they were. Maya wrote about her grandfather. The words flowed easier than she expected, memories she had kept locked away spilling onto the page. She wrote about his stories of service and sacrifice, about the code he had lived by, about the way he had made her feel safe and valued even in the chaos of her early childhood. She wrote about the seal patch she still carried, worn and faded but precious beyond measure. When Mrs. Rodriguez returned the papers, Maya's had a note at the bottom. Your grandfather would be proud of the person you're becoming. Keep fighting. You're stronger than you know. It was such a simple comment, but it meant everything to Maya. Someone saw her potential, not just her past. Someone believed she could become more than just a survivor. At home, Ryan was teaching her different lessons. He had a way of weaving wisdom into everyday activities, turning mundane moments into opportunities for growth. When Maya struggled with frustration over a difficult homework assignment, Ryan taught her the SEAL approach to problem solving. Break the big problem into smaller pieces, tackle them one at a time, adapt when something doesn't work. When Maya had a conflict with another student at school, Ryan showed her how to address it directly and respectfully, how to stand up for herself without escalating the situation. Strength isn't about dominating others, he told her. It's about knowing your worth and not letting anyone diminish it. He also insisted on structure and routine, things Maya had lacked for most of her life. Dinner was at 6 every evening they were both home. Homework was completed before television or phone time. Chores were divided fairly and completed without complaint. At first, Maya chafed against the rules, her independence instincts rebelling. But, slowly, she began to appreciate the stability that structure provided. Knowing what to expect, having clear boundaries and expectations, made her feel secure in a way she hadn't since her grandfather was alive. The hardest lesson came when Maya tried to thank Ryan for everything he was doing. They were cleaning up after dinner one evening in late January, falling into the easy rhythm they had developed of washing and drying dishes together. I don't know how to repay you for all of this, Maya said quietly, scrubbing a plate with more focus than necessary. For taking me in, for the lawyer, for school, for everything. Ryan was silent for a moment, drying a glass and placing it carefully in the cabinet. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. You don't owe me anything, Maya. That's not how this works. But you've done so much. I've done what anyone should do when they see someone who needs help. Ryan turned to face her, his expression serious. One of the most important things I learned in the teams was about the difference between debt and duty. A debt is something you're obligated to repay. But duty is something you do because it's right, because it's who you are, regardless of what you get back. Maya set down the dish she was washing, giving him her full attention. Your grandfather served because it was his duty. He didn't do it expecting repayment or recognition. He did it because he believed in something bigger than himself. Ryan leaned against the counter. Helping you isn't creating a debt you need to repay. It's me honoring the duty that comes with wearing this uniform, with being part of the community your grandfather served. You don't owe me. You owe it to yourself to become the person you're capable of being. I don't know who that person is yet, Maya admitted. That's okay. Figuring that out is part of the journey. Ryan smiled. But I can tell you what I see. I see someone who's survived things that would have broken most people. I see someone who climbed out on a ledge 4 stories up to help a stranger. I see someone who shows up to school every day even though it's hard, who does her homework even when she's tired, who's trying to build something from nothing. Maya felt tears prickling at her eyes again. She seemed to cry more now than she had in years, but Ryan never made her feel weak for it. He had told her that tears weren't weakness. They were proof that you still cared, that you were still fighting. The person you're becoming? Ryan continued. She's going to be something special. And the best way you can honor what I'm doing for you is to keep becoming her. Keep fighting. Keep growing. Keep refusing to let your past define your future. That conversation stayed with Maya in the weeks that followed, especially on the hard days when old habits and fears tried to pull her back. There were moments when she wanted to run, when the vulnerability of letting someone care about her felt too dangerous. There were nights when she woke up in a panic, convinced she was back on the streets, and it took several minutes to remember she was safe in Ryan's apartment. But each time, she made the choice to stay, to trust, to keep trying. In February, Ryan took Maya to a military charity event, a fundraiser for families of fallen service members. Maya was nervous about going, unsure how to act in such a formal setting. Ryan helped her pick out appropriate clothes from the donations a local organization had provided for her new start, and taught her basic etiquette for the event. The venue was filled with active duty military, veterans, and their families. Maya felt out of place at first, surrounded by all these people who seemed so put together, so sure of themselves. But then, Ryan introduced her to some of his former teammates, and she saw the genuine warmth in their greetings. "This is Maya," Ryan said to a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes. Her grandfather was a SEAL. Vietnam era. The man's expression immediately shifted to one of respect. "No kidding? What was his name?" "James Martinez," Maya said softly. "Master Chief Martinez?" "Out of Team 2. The man's eyes widened. "I knew him. Not well, but I heard the stories. That man was a legend." Maya stared at him. "You knew my grandfather?" "Not personally, but his reputation lived on. He saved half his platoon during an extraction gone wrong. Went back into a hot zone 3 times to pull out wounded men." The man extended his hand. "It's an honor to meet his granddaughter." Throughout the evening, similar conversations happened again and again. Maya would mention her grandfather's name, and older veterans would light up with recognition or respect. They would share stories she had never heard, details of missions, and commendations she hadn't known about. Each story added another piece to her understanding of the man who had meant so much to her. But the most powerful moment came near the end of the evening. A woman in her 60s approached Maya, her eyes fixed on the patch Maya still wore on her jacket, the one she had brought with her, and insisted on wearing despite Ryan's offer of something nicer. "That patch," the woman said softly. "May I ask where you got it?" Maya explained about her grandfather, about how the patch was all she had left of him. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Your grandfather saved my son's life," she said. "Vietnam, 1971. My boy was 22 years old, wounded and pinned down. James Martinez went back for him even after the order to evacuate had been given. He carried my son 3 miles through enemy territory to reach the extraction point." The woman's voice shook with emotion. "Because of your grandfather, I got to watch my son grow up. I got to hold my grandchildren. I got 40 more years with my boy before cancer took him last year." She reached out and gently touched the patch on Maya's jacket. "Your grandfather was a hero. And seeing you here, seeing you honor his memory by wearing this, it means more than you could possibly know. Thank you for keeping his legacy alive." Maya couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. She had always known her grandfather was special, but this brought it home in a way nothing else had. He hadn't just been a good man who was kind to his granddaughter. He had been someone who saved lives, who embodied the values he had tried to teach her. On the way home, Maya was quiet, processing everything she had heard. "You okay?" Ryan asked as they drove through the city streets. "I never really understood," Maya said slowly, "what it meant that he was a SEAL. I knew it was important, knew he was proud of it. But tonight, hearing those stories, meeting that woman, I finally get it. It wasn't just about being tough or brave. It was about being someone others could count on. About never giving up, never leaving anyone behind." "That's exactly right," Ryan said. "And Maya, you've been living by those same values without even realizing it. When you climbed out on that ledge to help David Chun, when you've gotten up every day and kept fighting even when things were impossible, that's the same spirit your grandfather had. It's in your blood." Maya looked down at the patch on her jacket, seeing it with new eyes. It wasn't just a piece of cloth, wasn't just a memory of someone she had lost. It was a reminder of who she came from, of the legacy she carried. And more than that, it was a promise, to herself, to her grandfather's memory, to Ryan who had believed in her, that she would live up to that legacy. She wouldn't just survive. She would become someone who made a difference, someone who helped others, someone her grandfather would be proud of. The path forward wasn't clear yet, and she knew there would be challenges and setbacks. But For the first time since she was 7 years old, Maya felt like she wasn't just drifting through life waiting for the next disaster. She had a purpose. She had a future. And she had someone in her corner who believed in her potential even when she couldn't see it herself. As they pulled into Ryan's apartment complex, Maya made a silent promise to the memory of her grandfather and to the man who had chosen to help her. She would not waste this chance. She would honor the sacrifice and service that had made her new beginning possible. She would become the person they both believed she could be. The journey was just beginning, but Maya was ready to walk the path, one step at a time. Spring arrived slowly, bringing with it a sense of renewal that Maya felt deep in her bones. The city transformed from gray and frozen to green and alive, and Maya found herself transforming right along with it. She had gained weight, filling out the gaunt hollows that had made her look so much older than her 15 years. Her hair, once dull and brittle from malnutrition, now shone with health. But the biggest changes were the ones that couldn't be seen in a mirror. April 23rd dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that felt almost deliberately symbolic. It was Maya's 16th birthday, and more importantly, the day of her emancipation hearing. Sarah Chun had prepared her thoroughly for what to expect, but Maya still felt butterflies in her stomach as she dressed in the professional clothes Ryan had helped her pick out. "You ready for this?" Ryan asked as they ate breakfast together, a tradition that had become sacred over the past months. "I think so," Maya said, though her voice shook slightly. "What if the judge says no? What if they decide I'm not mature enough? Then we appeal." "But, Maya, look at everything you've accomplished in the past 4 months. Your grades are excellent. Your teachers rave about you. You have a safe living situation and a support system." Ryan smiled reassuringly. "You're going to walk into that courtroom and show that judge exactly who you are. And who you are as someone who deserves this chance." The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoing hallways and serious-faced people hurrying past with briefcases and file folders. Maya stayed close to Ryan as Sarah led them to the courtroom where the hearing would take place. As they waited for their case to be called, Maya's mind wandered back over the journey that had brought her here. She thought about that cold December evening when Ryan had first seen her, when Brittany and her friends had mocked her for the patch on her jacket. She thought about climbing out onto that ledge with David Chun, about making the terrifying choice to trust Ryan enough to accept his help. She thought about all the small victories and setbacks of the past months, the homework completed late at night, the friendships slowly built at school, the therapy sessions where she had finally begun to process the trauma of her childhood. Peterson case, courtroom 3. A bailiff called, and Maya's heart jumped into her throat. The courtroom was smaller than she expected, less dramatic than the one she had seen on television. Judge Catherine Morrison sat behind the bench, a woman probably in her late 50s with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Maya, Ryan, and Sarah took their seats at a table, while a representative from the state sat across the aisle. Judge Morrison reviewed the file in front of her, taking her time, while Maya tried to keep her breathing steady. Finally, the judge looked up. "Miss Peterson, I've reviewed your petition for emancipation. I've also read the reports from your teachers, your therapist, and the social worker assigned to your case. This is an unusual situation." Maya's heart sank. Unusual usually meant complicated, and complicated usually meant denied. Most emancipation cases involve teenagers seeking independence from their parents for financial or personal reasons. Judge Morrison continued. "Your case is different. You've already been independent, in the worst possible way, and now you're seeking legal recognition of your ability to care for yourself while maintaining the support system you've built with Commander Mitchell." The judge turned her attention to Ryan. "Commander Mitchell, you've taken on a significant responsibility here. You've provided Miss Peterson with housing, support, and guidance. You've shepherded her through a difficult transition." "What?" Ryan stood, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. "Your Honor, Maya's grandfather was a Navy SEAL. He served with honor and distinction, and he embodied the values that every member of the teams holds sacred. When I saw Maya that night in December, I saw a young woman carrying her grandfather's legacy, literally wearing his patch, and I couldn't walk away. Our code is simple: never leave anyone behind." Maya is family, even though we share no blood. And family takes care of each other. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. Miss Peterson, would you please stand? Maya rose on shaky legs, her hands clasped in front of her to keep them from trembling. Tell me about your grandfather, the judge said, her tone gentler now. What did he teach you? Maya was surprised by the question, but she answered honestly. He taught me that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid. He taught me that honor means keeping your promises, especially when it's hard. And he taught me that the strongest people are the ones who help others, who refuse to leave anyone behind. And have you lived by those teachings? Maya thought about the question carefully. I've tried to. I didn't always succeed. When things got really bad, I ran instead of asking for help. But I'm learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept support. Commander Mitchell showed me that strength isn't just about surviving alone. It's about having the courage to trust someone, to build something better. Judge Morrison made a note, then looked back at Maya. Your academic record has improved dramatically in the past 4 months. Your therapist reports significant progress in addressing your trauma. Your teachers described you as motivated, responsible, and mature beyond your years. Commander Mitchell has provided a stable home environment and has agreed to continue supporting you even after emancipation is granted. Maya felt a flicker of hope at those last words. After emancipation is granted. However, the judge continued, and Maya's hope wavered. I want to be clear about what emancipation means. It's not just legal independence. It's responsibility. It means you're choosing to take control of your life, to make your own decisions, and to live with the consequences of those decisions. Are you prepared for that? Yes, Your Honor, Maya said firmly. I've been making life-or-death decisions on the streets for months. I'm not asking for emancipation because I want to be free of responsibility. I'm asking for it because I've proven I can handle responsibility. I just want the legal recognition that matches the reality of who I already am. Judge Morrison studied her for a long moment, and Maya met her gaze steadily, refusing to look away. Finally, the judge picked up her gavel. I'm granting the petition for emancipation. Miss Peterson, as of today, you are legally recognized as an adult with the rights and responsibilities that entails. The guardianship arrangement with Commander Mitchell will be dissolved, but I strongly encourage you to maintain the support relationship you've built. Judge Morrison's expression softened slightly. You've shown remarkable resilience, Miss Peterson. Your grandfather would be proud. Don't waste this opportunity. I won't, Your Honor, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. I promise I won't. The gavel came down, and just like that, Maya's legal battle was over. Sarah was hugging her, and Ryan had his hand on her shoulder, his smile broad and genuine. The state representative actually came over to congratulate her, saying he had rarely seen such a clear-cut case for emancipation. Outside the courthouse, in the spring sunshine, Maya felt lighter than she had in years. She was legally an adult now. She had control over her own life. The foster system couldn't touch her. Her mother couldn't force her back. She was free. But as they walked to Ryan's car, Maya realized that freedom wasn't the absence of connection. It was the ability to choose those connections, to decide who got to be part of her life. And she chose Ryan, chose this makeshift family they had built, chose to continue the path they had started together. So, Ryan said as they drove back toward his apartment, toward home, how does it feel to be legally an adult? Terrifying, Maya admitted with a laugh. And amazing. And, like nothing has really changed, but everything has changed at the same time. That's about right, Ryan agreed. The legal status is different, but the work stays the same. You keep going to school, keep going to therapy, keep building your future. The difference is now you're doing it as your own person, not as someone else's ward or responsibility. They celebrated that evening with dinner at a nice restaurant, something Maya had initially resisted. She still felt uncomfortable with anything that seemed too extravagant, too much like charity. But Ryan had insisted this was a celebration, and celebrations mattered. Over pasta and breadsticks, Maya found herself thinking about David Chun, the man they had talked down from the ledge on Christmas Eve. Ryan had kept in touch with him, had learned that David was doing better, had found a new job, and was slowly rebuilding his relationship with his children. I want to do that, Maya said suddenly. Ryan looked up from his meal. Do what? Help people like David. Like me. People who are at the edge, who feel like there's no way forward. Maya set down her fork, her expression intense. I've been thinking about it for weeks. I don't know exactly what it would look like. Maybe social work, maybe counseling, maybe something with homeless youth. But I want to use what I've been through to help others. Ryan smiled, and there was pride in his eyes. Your grandfather would love that. Using your pain to ease someone else's. That's the highest form of service. Will you help me figure out how? Maya asked. I know I need to finish high school first, then probably college. But I want to start learning now. Maybe volunteer work. I think I know just the place, Ryan said. There's a youth center that works with homeless teenagers. They're always looking for volunteers, especially ones who understand what the kids are going through. We can reach out to them this week. Over the following months, Maya threw herself into her new purpose with the same determination she had brought to survival. She finished her sophomore year with straight A's, a feat that seemed impossible given where she had started. She began volunteering at the youth center Ryan had mentioned, and found that her experiences on the streets gave her a credibility and understanding that the professional staff couldn't match. The kids at the center trusted her in a way they didn't trust the adults. She understood their wariness, their defensive postures, their reluctance to accept help. She knew the tricks of street survival, the dangers they faced, the way hope felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. And because she knew all of that, she could meet them where they were and, gently, patiently, show them that there was a way forward. One evening in June, Maya was helping serve dinner at the center when a girl came in who reminded her painfully of herself 6 months earlier. She was young, maybe 14, with that hollow-eyed look of someone who had been hungry for too long. Her clothes were dirty and ill-fitting, and she carried a backpack that clearly held everything she owned. And on her jacket, barely visible beneath the grime, was a faded military patch. Maya's breath caught. She approached the girl carefully, not wanting to spook her. Hey, I'm Maya. First time here. The girl nodded warily, keeping her distance. The food's pretty good, Maya said casually. And they don't make you talk about your situation if you're not ready. They just let you eat in peace. She gestured to the serving line. Come on, I'll show you how it works. As they moved through the line, Maya pointed out the different options, keeping up a light commentary that required no response. The girl began to relax slightly, enough that when they sat down to eat, she didn't immediately bolt. That's a military patch, Maya said, nodding toward the girl's jacket. Army. My dad's, the girl said quietly. He died in Afghanistan 3 years ago. Maya felt her heart clench. She reached up and touched the seal patch she still wore on her own jacket every day, the one that had started this entire journey. My grandfather was Navy. He passed away when I was 7. This was his. The girl looked up, really looking at Maya for the first time. You were homeless, she said. It wasn't a question. She could recognize it, the same way Maya had learned to recognize others who had lived on the streets. I was, Maya confirmed. For 8 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But you're not anymore. The girl's voice held a desperate hope, like she needed to believe escape was possible. No, I'm not. Someone helped me. Someone who saw past the dirty clothes and the defensive attitude to the person underneath. And now I'm trying to help others the way I was helped. Maya leaned forward slightly. What's your name? Jasmine, the girl whispered. Well, Jasmine, I'm not going to promise you that everything will be magically okay. It won't be. This is going to be hard, probably the hardest thing you've ever done. But I can promise you this, you don't have to do it alone. There are people here who can help, who want to help. All you have to do is let them. Over the next hour, Maya shared pieces of her story with Jasmine, carefully gauging how much the girl could handle hearing. She told her about Ryan, about the legal process, about school and therapy, and all the hard work of rebuilding a life. She didn't sugarcoat any of it, but she also made it clear that it was possible, that the girl sitting across from her was living proof. When Jasmine finally agreed to talk to one of the social workers at the center, when she took that first terrifying step toward accepting help, Maya felt something shift inside her. This was what she was meant to do. This was how she would honor her grandfather's legacy and Ryan's faith in her. By becoming for others what Ryan had been for her, a lifeline, a believer, proof that giving up wasn't the only option. Later that night, Back at the apartment she still shared with Ryan even though she was legally emancipated, Maya found him in the living room reading a military history book. He looked up as she came in. "How was the center?" he asked. "Good. Hard, but good." Maya sat down beside him on the couch, the same couch where she had slept that first night, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. "I met a girl tonight who reminded me of me. She had her dad's military patch on her jacket." Ryan set down his book, giving her his full attention. "Were you able to help her?" "I think so. I hope so." At least she agreed to talk to the social workers. Maya touched the seal patch on her own jacket, a gesture that had become almost unconscious. "I keep thinking about that night in December. If you hadn't stopped to help me, if you had just walked past like everyone else did, where would I be now?" "You're strong enough that you would have survived," Ryan said firmly. "You were surviving before I came along." "Maybe, but there's a difference between surviving and living." Maya looked at him seriously. "You taught me that. You showed me that accepting help isn't weakness, that building a life is more important than just making it through another day. And now I get to pass that forward. I get to be for Jasmine what you were for me." Ryan smiled, and there was unmistakable pride in his expression. "Your grandfather would be so proud of the person you've become, Maya." "I know I am." "Thank you," Maya said softly. "For everything. For seeing me that night. For not giving up on me even when I was difficult and scared and ready to run. For showing me what family really means. Thank you for letting me help. For taking the risk of trusting someone again." Ryan's voice was gruff with emotion. "You've reminded me why I served, what it all meant. You've given me a purpose beyond just going through the motions. You saved me as much as I saved you." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle through the window. Maya thought about how far she had come from that cold December evening, from the girl who had been mocked and hopeless and alone. She thought about the journey ahead, the challenges still to face, the work of helping others who were where she had been. But, mostly, she thought about her grandfather's legacy. He had served with honor, had saved lives, had embodied the values of duty and sacrifice. And now, in her own way, Maya was carrying on that tradition. Not in combat zones or dangerous missions, but in the equally important work of pulling people back from their own personal edges, of showing them that giving up wasn't the only choice. She touched the seal patch one more time, feeling its familiar texture beneath her fingers. It was more than just a piece of cloth now. It was a reminder of where she had come from and where she was going. It was a connection to the grandfather who had loved her and the man who had saved her. It was a promise to herself and to everyone she would help in the future. The homeless girl who had been laughed at for wearing her grandfather's patch had become someone new. Someone stronger, not despite her struggles, but because of them. Someone who understood that true strength came from helping others, from refusing to leave anyone behind, from honoring the legacy of those who had served before her. And as Maya sat there in the warmth and safety of the home she had built with Ryan, surrounded by the evidence of her own hard-won transformation, she knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. Her story wasn't ending with her own rescue. It was expanding to include all the Jasmines she would meet, all the desperate kids wearing faded military patches and carrying their pain like badges of honor. She would be their proof that survival wasn't the end of the story. She would show them that hope wasn't a luxury, but a necessity, that accepting help was an act of courage, and that every person deserved someone in their corner who refused to give up on them. Her grandfather had taught her what service meant. Ryan had shown her what family could be. And now Maya would spend her life passing those lessons forward, one struggling person at a time, honoring the legacy of that faded seal patch, and the two men who had made her understand its true meaning. The journey from homeless to hopeful had been long and painful. But as Maya looked toward her future, toward the lives she would touch, and the difference she would make, she knew that every step had been worth it. She had been given a second chance, and she would spend the rest of her life making sure others got their second chances too. Because that was what it meant to wear the patch. Not just to carry it, but to live by its principles. Never leave anyone behind. Always fight for those who can't fight for themselves. And never, ever give up, no matter how dark things seem. Maya had learned those lessons the hard way. Now it was time to teach them to others, to be the light in someone else's darkness, to prove that even in the coldest December nights, even when the whole world seems to be laughing at you, hope can still find a way in. And sometimes, that hope comes in the form of a stranger who sees past the surface to the person underneath. A stranger who chooses to care when everyone else walks past. A stranger who becomes family. Maya had been that homeless girl they laughed at, but she had become so much more. And her story, born from pain and redemption, would continue to unfold in the lives of everyone she touched, spreading ripples of hope and healing far beyond that first cold December evening when a seal spotted the Christmas Eve patch and chose to stop and help. The end was really just another beginning, and Maya was ready for whatever came next.